Hi all, this is Erica, aka ECR Horses 1901, and this week we're pausing the tier ranking videos, and I figured I'd make a short stream introducing myself and a little bit about what I am doing here. Since I have exactly 15 subscribers at this point, thank you all by the way, I figured I'd make up my own list of questions, but if there is anything else that you're just dying to know, put it in the comments and I will most likely respond. Okay, question number 1. When did you start collecting model horses? So I grew up in the 1980s, and the first horses I collected were My Little Ponies. That was literally all I wanted when it came to presents. Just the ponies, or their buildings, or their accessories. That was it. I still have a good amount of my original My Little Ponies, including this one. I don't remember her name, but her eyes are supposed to close when she lays down, which is not always successful anymore, but I still keep her on the shelf. Yes, I am acknowledging that she is a bit cursed herself. So, yeah, that's one of them though. My first Briar was probably in either 1987 or 1988. And I could be wrong, but I think my grandmother bought him for me from Toys R Us. I'm pretty certain on the Toys R Us aspect, but I don't remember if it was my grandmother or just my mom. And the model in question was this guy, the OG Sherman Morgan. And you can see that this one was well loved, perhaps a little too much. I definitely did not treat him or any of my other first Briars as collectibles because, you know, why would I? You know, they were just toys, along with all the other non-Briar horses that I used to have. And looking back on it, I guess you could say I only really collected from between 1990 to maybe 1994, until I got a real-life horse when I was a freshman in high school in 1995, and I'm pretty sure that that was what ended my interest in model horses, because why did I need them anymore? I had a real one. So it was pretty short-lived, but during that time I actually amassed a pretty decent collection. I had quite a few limited editions and commemorative editions, and I'll probably make a separate video on my older models another time. I think there's only one horse from my childhood collection that I actually got rid of. It was one of the Noritas, which I'll put up on the screen, and I remember I named him Zest. I don't remember anything else about him, but I do know that one of my friends accidentally broke his front leg, and I was pretty upset about that. But yeah, I think he's the only one I ever actually got rid of. So we'll do a deeper dive into my quote-unquote carpet herd, as I guess it's called, another time. Question 2, do you ride horses? Not currently, but I have on and off just about my entire life. I was always interested in horses and riding, but I was also kind of a timid kid, so I originally started when I think I was just 4 or maybe 5 in kindergarten, and the pony reared up like once and I did fall, but I was fine, but that was enough. It was enough of that. And then I started again in 2nd grade, but another thing happened with the pony. I think, you know, I was still just having lunge lessons, but I think he went unexpectedly into a canter and that was enough for me, so I gave it up again. But even when I wasn't riding, I was still horse crazy. I had a subscription to Horse Illustrated magazine starting in 2nd grade, and I would take them to school with me. I read every article, every ad, everything, and I used to just memorize as much as I could. I would go through like the Miller's magazines, the Tack magazines, and just memorize every style of bit, every style of saddle, you name it. The first book report I ever did in 3rd grade, I think, was on a nonfiction book about horses, and I also went to summer Girl Scout camp several times for their horseback riding overnight program. It wasn't until the summer after 6th grade that I started riding and actually stuck with it. I remember I did have one kind of scary experience where it was a pony and he was just doing that thing where he would just trot, trot, trot really fast instead of breaking into a canter, and I was getting really frustrated and a little unnerved because of it. And, like, I literally remember my mom being like, you aren't gonna give up again this time because, like, something a little bit scary happened, right? And I didn't. I actually stuck with it that time. But, yeah, it was a good place. It was a very small backyard barn. The instructors were really good. Here's a picture of me at, I think, my first or second show doing walk trot on a horse named Sam. You know, we did a little bit of jumping, a little bit of dressage, even riding out on some of the hills that were attached to the farm. And as you can see, I competed in some local shows, but it was nothing very serious. As I mentioned, in 9th grade, my parents did buy me my first horse, well, first and only horse to this point. And he was a leopard Appaloosa gelding named Leo. You know, we had good times together, we had some rough times together, but he was definitely always a character. Unfortunately, when I went away to college, I was going away far out of state, and so because I wasn't going to be around, we had to sell him. My parents are not horsey people, even though nowadays they have a small farm, but still no horses, nothing like that. So selling him was really the only option that we had, or, you know, at least seemed to be the best option at the time. I had intended to ride during college. In fact, I specifically sought out schools that had IHSA, but for a bunch of reasons that didn't end up working out. And college was hard for me. My first choice of major, which was animal science / pre-vet, didn't work out, as it does not work out for, I think, the majority of people that try to do that. And I didn't know what else to do, because that was literally the one thing that I had always set my mind on. Eventually, I ended up transferring to a small private school that had an equine studies program. There's me doing a free ride on one of my favorite ponies, Jock. And this could be a whole separate video, but I hated it there. Absolutely hated it, and I feel vindicated that it is no longer in business. But my riding really improved while I was there, but the school itself was just an utter disaster. So after that, I didn't ride again until I want to say when I was working in the years between undergrad and grad school. Probably, I think I started again around 2008-ish. And even then, I bounced around to a bunch of different local barns until eventually I found a place in actually a neighboring state that was a really good fit. And that's where I actually half-leased the horse that's my current profile picture. He was an Andalusian, although you would never guess he was an Andalusian. He looked just kind of like a mutt pony. But nevertheless, he's a full Andalusian. His name was Buddy, and he was great. I had an absolute blast riding that horse. But sadly, things happened that were beyond my control, especially since I was not technically the person that was in charge of the lease aspect, like the, you know, paperwork and all that good stuff. And so, unfortunately, he was taken away from us pretty much overnight. I think we had like 2 days notice or something that his owners were going to be taking him back. That just really sucked. You know, although I kept riding at that barn and, you know, I had other horses that I enjoyed working with, I think losing him suddenly, and for what I think could have potentially been prevented, really just took the wind out of my sails. Then my instructor left to go work in Florida for the winter, but she ended up just staying there, and then I think moved to New York State, which is not where I live. And although I did try one other barn after that, I started having some physical issues that made me feel like I was losing my balance or getting dizzy very easily. And so, because that's actually still something that I'm dealing with, these kind of, you know, dizziness or sense of being off balance while in motion, I mean, sometimes even just when I am walking, never mind on a horse, yeah, I'm not currently riding. I also can't currently drive on the highway, and the good barn that I was going to was about 45 minutes on the highway from here, so it's just not really possible at this point to go back there. Now, that's not to say I'll never ride again, but I think not being able to ride is partially what pushed me back towards model horses in the first place. Third question, do you plan to show your model horses? Yes. I initially thought photo shows would be the way to go, but I actually think I like live showing more. So because I've really only been in the hobby, quote unquote, for a few months, I've only gone to one show thus far, and it was a really cool idea. It was called a scratch and dent show, so it was supposed to be specifically for your beat up models. You know, maybe not as badly beat up as my old Sherman Morgan, but, you know, the ones that have the slight imperfections that you probably would not normally use for a live quality horse. Also, it was perfect because at the time, I didn't really have any show, maybe like 2 show quality horses, so I was able to bring out a lot of my older horses for that show. I was also able to use a lot of horses that I had found in antique stores that were really cool, but maybe pretty old and not therefore in perfect condition. And we did pretty well, which was surprising. But yeah, I already have a novice show lined up for next March. That's it so far, but I am part of Region 10, and that's all of New England and New York State, and so hopefully some other shows will pop up on the calendar for 2024. I also found that I'm really drawn to collectability, probably even more so than breed classes. That's kind of what I'm trying to make my niche. I also think part of it is just I find getting really good reference photos extremely challenging, and it's frustrating to me. So yeah, I lean towards collectability and decos and things like that. Next question, are you going to Brierfest in 2024? Yes. We have our hotel lined up already, and as soon as tickets go on sale in February, I'm there. In VIP all the way. So yeah, I haven't been to the Kentucky Horse Park since like the year 2000, so not only am I looking forward to finally getting to go to a Brierfest, which is something I've known about since the early 90s, but I'm also looking forward to getting to go back to the horse park and see what's changed and just kind of getting to experience all the things that are there. Question 5, do you have any other hobbies? Yes. So I already mentioned that horses were constant pretty much my entire life. Well, the other half of what I've done also for my entire life is ballet. I danced basically from the age of 3 until I was 16-ish, and even then I took like a year off, and then I went back and danced again when I was around 17. And then also, I did several years when I was in college. I was in a professional company for several years when I was a teenager, and I get to be in core roles in shows like The Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and some other, other works done by our local choreographers. I always knew I didn't want to do ballet professionally though. You know, again, I had aimed to be an equine vet like a lot of people. You know, therefore, because I knew I didn't want to go on and do ballet as a career, when I started having issues, mostly with my Achilles tendon, but also a little bit with my knee and with my hip, all in my right leg, that's when I basically just hung up the point shoes. You know, I said that's it, this is done. So after college, undergrad, you know, I was basically on a hiatus for a while until I got my current job, which is in a pretty big city. Every once in a while, if I had to stay like overnight, if their dance company had adult classes on the night when I was going to be staying over, I would drop in. But that was pretty much the extent of it until 2020, and then being inside and wanting to, you know, get some exercise and stuff, I actually started doing ballet again more consistently. You know, I would do bar most days of the week. I took some live classes on Zoom, and in 2022, I even went to an adult intensive for a few days in Connecticut. However, I started having issues with my big toe, still on my right leg, because my right leg hates me, and that unfortunately hasn't really gone away even all this time later. So I currently can't dance either, which is very sad because that is an activity that's been way more accessible to me than horseback riding, and it would be nice to have one of my main 2 activities back. So I do plan on getting that toe looked at next year. we'll see if anything can be done about it. Other than that, I also read a lot of horror or classics or nonfiction, and I also write. I have technically self-published one book, but and that's actually the first in this series, but I don't really intend to publish them like for the public. I also spend a lot of time playing World of Warcraft and some other computer games, and otherwise I just have a ton of varied interests. It would honestly take us a while to get through them all. Okay, and then the last one, kind of looping back towards model horse stuff, is what model is your Holy Grail? So I hear this come up a lot in other people's videos. I actually have a document in, oh, it's right here, in Google Drive, and I've printed it out, on which I have written my aspirational horse list, and I've listed every model, like having gone through Identifier Briar very thoroughly, I have listed every model that I would theoretically like to own. You know, I didn't bother writing down like one-of-ones or anything like that, that would basically be impossible or just ridiculously expensive. But there are a handful of expensive horses on my list, or ones that I very rarely or have never seen appear online. You know, for example, Frankensteed is a big one that I would love to have, but every time I've tried looking for him online anywhere, I don't find him. I also love the metallic silver version of Uffington, which I have seen, I think, on eBay, and he was also very expensive. I think the most expensive horse on my list right now is Hope and Glory, the paint Lady Phase model, which I think I saw again on eBay for over $2,000. So I technically could afford it, but I think I would feel very bad about myself afterwards, because I love model horses, but ultimately they're plastic horses. Well, anyway, I think that's enough for one introductory video. Next week, it's back for round 6 of our tier ranking, and we've got some interesting molds a-coming, so definitely do tune in for that. If you liked today's video, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time.